Well, RC fans, race fans, sim fans, Racing 393. Finally, I've had quite a lot of interest in the old video of my transmitter, my Sanwa MTR. I've had quite a lot of use of this now, to be honest. I must have had it probably, I don't know, I should have got an invoice here somewhere, but I've probably had it well over a year, 18 months or more, maybe even 2 years. So I would now say that I'm in a really good position to give my thoughts and a small review, without going into too much detail here, but a small review of this transmitter. So without further ado, sit back, get yourself a quick cup of tea, and I'll see you in a bit. Okay, welcome aboard. Right, this shouldn't be much longer. I'm hoping 20-25 minutes max. MTR. So I've got it here. I've also got the manual here as well. So let's look at the transmitter initially. Let's just go through initially what we think. So I've got it here. MTR FH5 telemetry system. So, I mean, I think from right off, let's start off from the beginning. Let's look at the price. Now, I'm going to put it there so that I don't keep myself all fingers and thumbs. Now, I've got the manual here. I hope I don't start the old show the camera and it's not in the camera thing like I do when I'm in the shed. That would be a little bit annoying. Now, I will be looking up and down and away from the camera whilst I get bits and pieces out. Now, I have looked, as of today of this recording, which is the 15th of November 2024, the price. Now, I should have a date here actually, you have to bear with me a second. I purchased this on the 22nd of the 1st, 2023. Oh, actually, it's over a year, isn't it? What am I talking about? Yeah, it's probably about 18, nearly 2 years. I'll get it right one day, I promise. So I bought a few things here, but this cost me £214.99, which is probably, as the crow flies, so roughly in US dollars, it's about 250, 260 US. Now, that was then. That's nearly 2 years ago. I've just looked on Model Sport, a UK-based online model shop, if you like. I'm just going to have to double check that before I give you that figure. As of right now, so its recommended retail was $189.99. I bought this one off, where did I buy this one? MB Models, so slightly more expensive. But you can buy this one today, $189.99. So you work that out in US dollars, I don't know, 230 US. However, this has got discount on it on Model Sport, and you can pick it up today for £180.49. In US dollars, 230? About 230 US dollars. Not bad. Now, I'm always on the lookout for transmitters online from various model shops, especially when new ones come out. Now, I'm not going to quote the model, but I do know there's another Sanwa which has just been released. It's on all the model shops. Schumacher Racing, MB Models. I'm not sure if it's on Model Sport, I have to say. This is a same. It's a steering wheel and trigger, a gun, if you like. But that one's like 570 odd pounds, well over $650 conversion. Now, I'm not going to quote specifications, but I did read down it, and it does state a lot of things that are different to something like this. Whether it's worth that extra £350 is your guess. Your guess is as good as mine, actually. I'm not prepared to pay that much for a transmitter. But now, I haven't got it with me here. I suppose I could put a picture up if I find one. Let me show you perhaps what I used to run. So this is what I used to use. A FlySky FS GT3. I think it was a C. I can't remember. It's in the shed. I don't know. But they did various different iterations. But this is my go-to. Super cheap. I think I paid... I can't remember what I actually paid for it. Because it was a long time ago. Somewhere around like £40 at the time. You can pick these up now for like next to nothing, literally, and there's a reason for that. Somewhere around, I mean, I've seen them on AliExpress for £14, so somewhere around $20 plus the shipping. Now, for an outdoor basher, like, you know, any car outside having fun, ideal. You've got nothing to worry about. They're a bit fiddly on the menu. They've got like a knurled wheel, and you can sort of scroll through the menu and you press the wheel. You can probably see it. I don't know whether you'll see my mouse cursor, but it's about... You won't see the mouse cursor, but it's that sort of... As you look at the picture, the top... sort of the right-hand part of the picture in the corner. You can just make out it's up that side. Anyway, it's just a wheel that you sort of flick through the menu and press initially to select. It is a bit fiddly, and it's not very well explained in any of the manuals and things. You just need to sort of trial and error it. But when you get things like the receivers for literally like nothing, £10, in fact you can buy a batch of 10 for like less than £50. The range isn't bad, and remember, you're only comparing this with outside bashing. I use bashing as a... I don't like using that word, but if you've got an RC car and you just want to use it outside, whether it be, you know, a skate park, a runway like I do, an open piece of grass, playing fields, tarmac area, on the actual road, in your garden, whatever, perfect. If this is the only transmitter you have, the FlySky, you won't be disappointed. Now, I used this for my LMP12 for my very first BRCA national event. What a mistake. Now, I didn't know that at the time, but it was, and I've said it many times in my previous videos, but this is all, or it, not almost, it is, it's like not being connected to the car at all. Now, I'm going to add a little bit onto this video. I've got something just out of shot there you can't see, and I can't... I don't believe it. I forgot to put this bit in. If you need to know, just message me, and if I get enough interest, I'll do another part of this video. Forgot that. Sorry. Back to that in a minute, and I used that item with this transmitter. I don't want to swear, but rubbish. Rubbish. R-U-B-B-I-S-H. Good job I can spell. Rubbish. So, but I will back that up. If you're going to get a transmitter, these are quite old as well, so there's clearly further iterations of this which might be a little bit more expensive, but I'm pretty sure they'll be more accurate. Now, let's get back to the transmitter that we're talking about, this one. So I'm not going to do a review on everything in this booklet. There's just too much. I wish I was Steven Spielberg, but I'm not. So this booklet is, it's got over 50 pages. But we'll talk about this, and I can do a little bit of showing you on here the best I can. So we'll start off with looks. Now the looks of this, well, it's a transmitter, it's a pistol grip. A lot of race RC drivers use sticks. I haven't used sticks for years, but I've got to say that you always go by the feelability of the controls. Now, if you get a cheap transmitter that comes with a ready-to-run typical product you'll get from anywhere, to be honest, even like Relario or any of the sort of Traxxas or anything like, I won't say Armour because I've never ever owned an Armour, so I can't comment on that, but anything like that range, for the most part, they don't feel bad, but they are cheaper. So this has got a bit of weight to it, a bit hefty. It runs, I'll just show you underneath, it's 4. So 4, they last forever. I mean, I think these are only my second batteries that I've ever had to put in it. So I suppose you can take that saddle pack out and run like a rechargeable battery. That's what my Fly Sky has. But it does have a bit of weight in there. Like I said, trigger feels nice and firm. The wheel just feels solid. When you let it go, it doesn't feel too tinny. But I'll be honest with you, I can't really say that unless it's really cheap, that you're not going to notice too much difference on that part. Now, it's fully adjustable as well. I'm looking at this now. Yes, there's an adjustable screw just under there, under the wheel. And there's also one, it's difficult to see, but there's like an Allen key. You can't quite see it there, but it's underneath the trigger. When you adjust those, you can adjust the tension of that, which I don't think I've done actually, but because I think that's basically, I don't know if I did turn that. Maybe I did, but I've got it so there's a bit of resistance there on my finger, so I don't like it loose. So there's quite a bit of pressure on that. It when I squeeze the trigger, it does enough to just flatten my finger very slightly. So that's how much resistance I've got on there. On-off switches at the back. The other controls on here, we've got like channel, I think it's channel 3, isn't it, on there? I'm just trying to look now. So we've got a button there for channel 3. I'm just trying to look now because I can't see because of my rubbish light. All the usual switches and buttons. I'm sort of looking in my own light here, but got trim 1, trim 2, trim 3, easy to reach on the side. So they're up here. So they're just a case of clicking them like that. They've got a nice click, but nice and easy to adjust on the fly. So when the car's going along, pretty much like most of this, to be honest with you. We've got the adjustable, well, on here, I don't know if you can see it on it, it's dark, but on there, you can see where there's an adjustable screw for the brake. So you can move that to where you want it as well, which is good. So I think something like this has quite a lot of small adjustable features to make it comfortable for you to use. Now, let's go on to, as I'm looking at it now, the menu. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say I know what every single feature does, because a lot of it I haven't used. But when you switch it on, you'll hear this little beep. So this is typically what the menu looks like. I'm hoping you can see that. You might not, because the light's not quite right in here. So I'm just sort of moving it around. But on there, you'll have to bear with me. What we have got is you push down, up and down. So you've got it on, I've got it on model 11. And I've actually got this on, at the time, Super Champ. It's got 5.8 volts. And you can click down now on the side here, on the top here, we've got an up-down sort of buttons, if you like, and a middle button and a back button. The back button is there. So at the moment, I can flick on the down. Doesn't really matter if I go up or down. And it gives you some information here, temperature, on the telemetry, which I must admit I haven't used on this transmitter. I think you're going to need a telemetry receiver. It might be a certain receiver. I'll go back to receivers in a minute. But anyway, that's that. So I'm on Super Champ. So if I come up, we go onto the normal screen, and you've got there, you can move that steering on there like this and do the throttle. It's a bit awkward, this angle, I must say, but like that. And you'll be able to see how much the steering is actually moving on there. I'm just going to get back to there. So you'll have to bear with me. I'm going to explain what's on here. So when we go to the settings menu, we've got 6 boxes. Now, if I can show you this so that it just about sort of shows on the camera, I'm hoping you can see that on there. It will go off in a minute, I think. So that. Can you see that? It will go off in a second. So on those 6 boxes, we've got settings, auxiliary, model, which is where you change everything on it, like the type of car you want to use, timer, telemetry, and system. Now, on the settings, when you click on the settings with your up and down button, you then click the enter button, which I'll do now. I can't really see what I'm doing here, but so we've got settings within the servos. So at the moment, it defaults on steering, which is flashing. And you can change that by going up and down to throttle, auxiliary 1, auxiliary 2. So I only use steering or throttle. So you can go up and down. Let me just move that back there a minute. I'm just going to back. So up and down selects, and then the middle button, which is the enter button. What you tend to do then, you put enter, and then it enters the sub menu, which you can then change up and down on the side. It sort of starts from the main menu, it goes down, and it goes along to the little sub menus for you to select. So typically, you've got your dual rate, your speed, throttle curve, failsafe, your sort of base settings, which include reversing the servo, EPA L, EPA right, and you got down the bottom here, you've got like a function, so you can trim where you want the. I believe that one actually is where you want the servo to start, its start point. Now, I had some problems previously trying to map a new like exe run setup, and because the speed controller thought that neutral wasn't like this, that was your neutral position. Everything was set to 0 or neutralized, but it actually needed it to be slightly off. I believe that's there what I should have set, which I didn't know at the time. So that's the function. I believe that's right. I'm doing this on memory, so if it isn't, and and I've got it wrong, let me know. So if you go up, if you go back, you select steering, ST, and you go up to throttle. You push enter. And you can scroll down, exactly the same results. It doesn't stay on. I mean, there is probably a way to keep the screen on, but it goes off very quickly. I'm not sure if you can see that now it's off. Might even see it a bit better. But that's actually, as I pick my nose, very easy to use. I'm going to go back. Now, auxiliary, let me just summarize what that is. So I'm just going to rig this because I didn't know this bit, base settings. So I said it was to do with where the servo is. I'm not quite sure. I was right there, but base sets multiple functions all at once, such as the reverse that determines the direction of the servo of each channel, the speed controller according to the specific RC car, the sub-trim that adjusts the neutral position, and the endpoint adjustment. So I suppose you can set it up for one base setting and you could have another base setting. That's how I read that, which I was kind of right, but maybe not directly. So yeah, so that's the base setting. We'll go through. If I come back down onto this, we go back to, we've got model. The model, which sort of selects model select setup wizard, a quick setup wizard name, and you can copy that name. I will say that scrolling along the menu, if you're up and down and then you got your enter and then your back button, it's very easy to get that wrong. And you can spend a little bit of time going through the menus trying to get the right letters. It's not as straightforward as the rest of it. It's a little bit like the GT3 Fly Sky, where it's a little bit clumsy. I'm unless it's me, but I do find the model menu a little bit fiddly. Now, one on here which is important is we call that system, and we've got the bind button. So binding on these is super easy. The downside to this transmitter is the cost of the receivers. Now, the receivers you use for this, I've got it here, so I was just looking at it the other day because I needed to buy another one. Now, there's two options you've got here. Just bear with me. So the receiver that works on these are the Sanwa receivers, the RX493i. They retail in the UK for approximately about £80, £82, $100 US. There's one option. That's super expensive. Now, I know you can transfer receivers to car. Maybe that's what you should do. I don't do that. I like to have settings in each car and just go with it. The other option is you go down the old Chinese route, AliExpress, and you can buy knockoff receivers, and they work out about $17 each. So I normally buy 2 or 3. Now, I have tried them. I can't vouch for the distance, but I can vouch for they do work. And if I put those in my basher cars, the ones that I'm rebuilding or vintage or just ones I'm going to run around outside, not race at all, which if you see my race RC video, you're probably thinking, what are you talking about? But they work fine at that level. But range, I haven't tried, and I haven't tried them for racing. So the only race car that I've got built at the moment is the LMP12. So that's got a genuine Sanwa receiver for like £82 UK. But I have tried the cheaper ones and they seem to work fine. They do bind. Binding's really easy. So I'm not going to show you on here because you can't really see it. But when you go into the system and you got the bind, you click enter. There's the enter button, as I've said before, is that middle. I'll show you that one. Is that middle button there. You push enter and it starts to go into the bind menu. I probably could show you that. I don't know whether it's going to be beneficial or not. So I'll go into system. I'll click bind. There we go. So you've got like a little enter along there. You scroll down to enter. Before you do that, you've got the receiver. It needs power. So I just use a normal 4 AAAs in a battery pack, like any old vintage RC car be powered by. Plug it in to a spare port. Plug the bind key in, so it's on. Turn the transmitter on, so a blue flashing light on these, even Sanwa do, but with the knockoff Sanwas, it starts to flash very quickly, like that. You scroll down to bind, you click enter, it goes from quick flash to a normal pulse, like this. Blue, I can't show it because I haven't got one here. You then, what I keep forgetting to do, you don't just take the bind key out, you then turn off the receiver. So in my case, I just pull the batteries out, turn the transmitter off, take the bind plug out, stick your servos back in or whatever you're doing, the power, transmitter on, receiver on. Talking to transmitters, so turn that off. And it's done. And it really is that easy. I think I said, did I say turn the receiver on first? Doesn't matter if it's not bound to anything, so that you can turn the receiver on first before you do the transmitter at the start, but it will come up and it's not bound, and it's very, very easy, much easier than the Fly Sky in my opinion, although it's a very similar process. So there's more on this which I probably haven't mentioned, so we are, if you haven't noticed, we're going through the controls. And one of the features on here which I actually was very surprised about. So you've got the throttle and turning curve, if you like. What is that called? It's simply called curve. Nice and easy. So you imagine a graph with a line going like that. You can change that line to curve like that or like that. So for steering, for example, when you go left and right, so on the transmitter, it's a very linear line. I know it might not look like left and right on the screen, but I'm my left and my right. Left, right, like that. And that will just turn the wheels at that range. If you put the line down like that, it goes and slows down. So you can slow down the amount of, it doesn't go like that from my left to my right. I know it's not the same on there. You actually slow it down, the small increments that you do in between. And the other way, you can sort of speed it up and slow it down like that. So I didn't know that was the thing. And I did that on my LMP12. And it made such a difference. It's more stable. So when you do like small corrections on the straight, it doesn't actually make the car dart from side to side. It goes, it's dull. It sort of dampens the steering, if you like. And you can do the same with that on the throttle. So it depends on, if you've got, I suppose, like a tight twisty track, you can sort of plant the throttle, all the way down, but it doesn't actually release all that power all at once. I suppose it would work in the wet or something on the outdoors. Now, most decent transmitters will have that on there. Now, there's lots and lots of things on this transmitter which I probably don't use. The fail-safe I do on my nitros, very good. So when you turn the transmitter off, if you don't know on a nitro, you don't want, not that you would do that, but if you lost signal, you wouldn't want the nitro to continue going, and usually it will stay on whatever the servo was set on with the throttle. It could be flat out, couldn't it? It will fly across wherever it was going. So any loss of signal, I set it on my nitros so that it turns the servo off, it shuts the throttle and applies the brake. It doesn't cut the engine, but it probably would anyway. But at least it saves everything, which is a good thing, and it won't harm anybody. Obviously, the endpoint adjustments, very easy to do. You know what endpoint adjustments are. I'll be honest with you, most transmitters have got that on there, most decent transmitters. It's something which doesn't overstretch the servo. So the servo goes full lock for the steering, if you like. If the steering is full lock and the servo's trying to go further than that, that's what can damage your servo. So pretty much that's quite important, and that's pretty much on majority of transmitters nowadays. It's got auxiliary. I'll be honest, I've never used it. If you know what that is in an easy way to explain it, then happy days. We have got, so ALB, anti-lock brake, ALB. I thought that used to be ABS, but anyway, on a real car it's ABS. So you can set this on or off, and it's also got the amount, so you can adjust how sensitive you want that to come on. I haven't played around with that. It's something I will set up on some, especially the cars I've got which are going really fast, because I tend to overpower my RC cars. And one thing it is tricky, a rear-wheel drive RC car with a shed load of power, when you stop, if you apply the brake and it comes on fairly robust, it will spin. Now, speedrun cars, especially if you are doing this, it is worth looking into your transmitter for this function. Fortunately, this one has that, so that's very, very good. Although I haven't played around with it too much, I did try it on a nitro on my RC10 GT, and it worked. That used to always spin when you hit the brakes because it's being rear-wheel drive. So we like that. It's got on here full brake, your brake position, and then neutral. So it depends on where you have that, and you can also adjust the curve of that as well. So really good. You wouldn't get that on a cheap transmitter. It's got here how to use each function. Like, what's it got on here? Just the throttle type, steering type, lots of detail. In fact, this one, offset. So this is what I was trying to talk about when I couldn't find everything set to neutral and everything like that. This is the neutral position that most, well, Hobbywing, nevertheless, in fact, most ESCs, when you calibrate, you start off in the neutral position. But for some reason, neutral for the car I was trying to do was just slightly that way. You sort of move the throttle like that, and then it was neutral on the calibration part of the ESC. So the offset, which I didn't know that until somebody on the comments mentioned it actually on a previous video, said about that, and I did look it up, but I'd already bound it and done everything. But on here it's actually got your offset, so another fantastic feature. So from what I can gather, auxiliary 1 and 2 is for channel 3 and channel 4 if you've got that on your transmitter. So I think, would that not be used for something like, you wouldn't use it on here obviously, but I don't know. You wouldn't use a drone on that, would you? No flying? I don't know. What am I trying to say? But it has got that on here. I think ultimately, I think the auxiliary settings sounds like it's things like if you've got more functions, like for example, a crawler, where you've got more things to do with perhaps steering, brake, that sort of thing. But on a typical normal nitro or electric car, there's not much else on other than your steering and your throttle and brake. Now, I'm not going to say that's totally correct, and you might be thinking, aren't you supposed to be reviewing it? Well, yeah, but I haven't actually used them, so I don't know whether I would. I'll have to read up on that, and maybe I'll do an update video on that. But there's going to be people out there that absolutely know this part more than me anyway. So, it's actually got on here. Yeah, so 4-wheel steering AWS. So I'm guessing it is something to do with the extra functions if you've got like a crawler. Front and rear wheel separate drive. So you might have another, so if you've got like, a crawler which can actually do crab steer, or a long vehicle which might need more turning circle, or if you run a, I don't know, a JCB model, JCB or something like that, it's probably useful for that type of thing. It's probably why I haven't used it. And it's got into great depth on auxiliary on here and mixing. It's really in depth. Would I ever use it? Probably not, if I'm honest. It's got the model menu on here, which was discussed. And how many models, you might be asking, can it hold? So from 1 to 20. 20 models. Very, very good. In my case, 20 receivers later at £80, or 17 US dollars if I go the cheap route. But that's not bad, is it? 20 model numbers, and I'm on currently 11. So yeah, that's in fact, most of these cars here, majority of these that you can't see, but the other cars are all on this transmitter, which is good. So it is very self-explanatory. I'm looking at perhaps going down this menu again. I'm looking down if I've forgotten anything. So the timing menu, you can actually put a lap timer on it. Now I did try that when I was doing my LMP, but everything's all on the transponder, isn't it? It's very easy to see that now. I suppose this could be while you're going around, but I wouldn't have time to look at that screen if I'm trying to control my LMP12. But you've got like a switch to set the lap time, and then you can actually put, it's got an alarm on here, so you can set your threshold, I guess, if you go underneath your average lap time, I think. It's got here, as the default, timer switch is set on the SW1, switch 1, which, looking at this, which is just under the wheel there. So you've got switch 1, switch 2, switch 3. So under switch 1 is where you can get the lap timer system, or the settings, if you like. The timer is on SW1. Holding the SW1 will stand by the timer, then push SW1 again, or operate the throttle for the timer to be started. I haven't actually tried that. When I did, I wasn't doing it right, but I'm not sure it would have benefited me anyway. But it's useful if you've got a track set up, or you've got like markers. I don't know. You can time yourself to and from, which would be quite useful if you were doing that sort of thing. I think the lap timer, because you can recall that back up again. There is something else on here. There isn't. Don't keep complicating it. So that's for the lap timer. I mean, not all the cheap transmitters, they definitely won't have that. You've got interval time. So I guess between, it says here, it activates the alarm at the time set at the beginning of running and uses it as a guide for the lap. So I suppose you go round quite slowly and it'll give you a time, and it'll just record that each time you go round. You've also got down timer, and I'll just read it on here because again I haven't used this. It can be used for calculating running time of an electric RC, it's useful, and the fuel consumption of an engine RC car. That's also useful. You can set for per second up to 99.59. When the timer switches to up timer, the down timer ends, and you can check lap time after the end. So there's the telemetry side of it. Why is my head hurting? Hang on. So the telemetry is very, very in depth, and you know, something which I might try to use. I don't know, bashing around outside, whether it's something I need to do, but there's certainly some more settings on this that I haven't been using that I know was there, like the ABS, or anti-lock brake, ALB as they call it. The timing would be good. I mean, you can time how long you're running an electric car for before it goes into a low voltage cutoff, so you can get an actual run time, I guess. That's quite interesting statistics. It also has a logging feature which can record up to 2 temperatures, T1, T2. You need to have a compatible receiver and It says here Super Vortex series. So it sounds like you've got to have what a Super Vortex series. I'm guessing that's probably a receiver, because via the receiver we'll get information onto the transmitter. It isn't going to know what the temperatures are of a motor, for example, if it hasn't got. It's got, you have a sensor lead, so part of that will probably help with the information to and from the ESC to the receiver to the transmitter. Is that how it works? Again, something far more in depth than what I would use, but useful if you want to log things down for, temperature of your motor or the ESC or something like that, which is good. We've got alert settings on here, so you can set your parameters if things get a bit too hot. More telemetry settings on here. The telemetry side of it, hence the name, FHS telemetry system. So that's basically what it's designed for, and most of that I probably have never used. What a great review. So just to finish up, I'll give you a list of the receivers that would seem compatible with this. I'll read them out because I don't know them all. RX491, RX492, RX492i, RX493, RX493i. My eyes are really hurting. It's got a star FH1, FH3, FHE and DS receivers are not compatible. You can also set the brightness of the LCD, how long it stays on. Mine comes off straight away because I don't have it glowing at me. I don't need it. Perhaps now when I'm showing the camera it'd be useful, but how often am I doing that? It's got about the binding, so we've covered that, nice and easy. So we finally got trim 1, trim 2 and trim 3. You can actually change the setting value of each of those. I think most of us will trim back and forth 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 forward, whatever it goes up to. You can have it so that trim forward does more than that one. So you can have it at 5 settings, 1, and it moves it more. The whole thing is programmable. Now for effectively what is £180.79 today, this is probably a no-brainer. For a pistol grip type of transmitter, it's got an internal, this bar here, if you want to know, that you can see at the top, this bar is the antenna, so it's sort of built in, so nothing's sort of sticking up or breaking off, and you can use it as a little bit of a handle as well by picking it up. I've got to say, for £180 plus a few pence, this is a very, very good transmitter. Easy to bind. So to summarise, it's got a very comprehensive user manual. It's got some troubleshooting in the back. If this happens, what to do. It's fully programmable, and everything you do need to know is in this manual. I have to set back a bit because my fat head's in the way. There we go. So to summarise, it looks fine. It feels quite sturdy with the throttle and the steering. It's got very easy trim settings. So if you want to do your tracking or your braking or your throttle on the fly, very easy. A very easy menu setup. Model setup is a little bit fiddly to go through. You can do that wrong without realizing, and you have to keep doubling up on, deleting letters and reapplying them. Can take a bit of time. I'll probably put that down to me, to be honest, but it's a little niggly bit in my part. The menu navigation, excellent. Binding characteristics, even for me, very easy. Fully programmable, much more than what I'm using. And the telemetry system is very in-depth. Does a lot more than what I have used it for. So it depends what you need it for. Just going out bashing on the street, You can't really go wrong. It's got some good range on it. I can't quote the exact range, but I did take a radio control car, electric car. I won't say out of view, but where I could just, I had to look through my phone to make sure which way it was facing. I couldn't see because it was such a far down on the runway and the heat haze. I was even struggling to think, where is it? So I had to use my phone. I zoomed in and then I controlled the car on the transmitter just so I could see which way it was facing. And it went forward and back and it still worked. It did everything perfectly. So I don't know how far that was, but if you think a 1/10 car almost out of view so you don't know which way it's facing, that's got to be far enough. Expensive receivers. In my opinion, £80 a lot of money for a receiver. You can get the cheaper ones. I'm not so sure that the range will be as good. Will they be as reliable? I personally wouldn't use them for racing. I would actually spend the money on the compatible receivers. I'm pretty sure there are others that might work, but I don't mind. I mean, this does me absolutely fine. I paid £214 for this 2 years ago for £180.79, and you can buy it today from Model Sport. Absolutely. Do not waste your money trialing something else. I do prefer pistol grip, but I grew up on sticks. Sanwa make loads of ranges of transmitters. It's up to you at the end of the day which way you go. If you're used to the stick version, use stick. If you want with the wheel, the pistol grip, I actually quite like that. Maybe one day I'll get another stick Sanwa. I mean, I'm not going to pay £500 for one, but maybe I'll go more. Maybe I'll get a more expensive one and just compare it to what this is. My Fly Sky, I'm going to ditch. It is in some of my cars now, but over time it will just turn around and I'll sell it with something. I don't know. It does well for a budget radio, that one. So, but you know, you can't really go wrong for like $14. I mean, is it £14? About $20, whatever it is. 20 quid, $20, whatever. This is much more superior, and I would go down this Sanwa route every day of the week. So that's my quick review. I do apologise, I didn't know everything, but I've explained the basics. If there's anything I haven't explained, please put a comment down and I'll do my best to respond. I'll only be reading the manual to respond back to you. The manual can be found online anyway, so most of the answers that you might want to know are online. But what do you say? Definitely, if you're looking for a transmitter and you want the pistol grip, get one of these. You certainly won't be disappointed. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that quick review, and I shall see you on the next video. Bye bye for now.